Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to the 143, the virtual 143. This is Under Review, here with you with another episode for the week.
Yes, we're going to talk some NFL minicamp. There's some drama, some stuff happening that you need to be
There always
updated
is.
on.
There always
There
is.
always is.
Let's kick it off, though, with the stat of the week. Something pretty big that happened this week. Monday night, Game 5, NBA Finals, the Denver Nuggets, clinched the finals with their very first playoff, just championship, their very first championship. In NBA history, they've been a franchise for 47 years. So your stat of the week, brought to you by Andrews Logistics, is that they have now won their very first NBA championship. A lot of people are saying they're going to keep it going. It could be a dynasty that has yet to reveal itself, but they were very dominant this year. I think they only lost 4 games in the finals, so very dominant performance from the Nuggets. And congrats to all you Denver fans out there. I don't think they have a huge fan base, but congrats to all you Denver fans out there on y'all's win.
And your player of the week, in light of that, decided to go with Mr. Nikola Jokic, who obviously got Finals MVP. I mean, I think that was pretty well deserved, and he finished the season averaging 24.5 points per game, 9.8 assists per game, and 11.8 rebounds per game. So he was basically averaging a triple-double every single season, which is
remarkable.
ridiculous.
He had the first 30-20-10 game in finals history, over 30 points, over 20 rebounds, and over 10 assists. So that's pretty crazy as well. And you know what he said at the end of it? Just want to go home. I think he was ready to be done, so they ended it in 5.
Yep.
But it was just a pretty short series, not super exciting. But congrats to the Nuggets and to Denver.
And also, just speaking of ending it in 5, there was someone on this podcast that said that the Nuggets would win in 5. I can't remember who, though.
I think it was both of us. I think we were in agreement there. I want to say Ian said 5 as well.
I thought he said 6.
He might have said 6.
Ian said 6.
Okay, Ian was wrong and will never be on this show ever.
The NBA expert, mind you.
But yeah, we did say it would be in 5, and that just shows that people should listen to us more often. I mean, it sounds to me like they didn't even need to have a series because we had already called it, you know?
We could have just told them who won. Like, they didn't even need to play.
Maybe they'll do that next year with us. Anyways, though, that is congrats to Denver, congrats to the Nuggets, and that wraps up the NBA season. We are moving on to kind of that time in sports where it's just baseball for now. And so we will probably be doing a lot of football talk just like we did last year. So going into that right now, everyone has started their mandatory mini camps, all the NFL teams around the nation. And a little bit of drama at the Bills mini camp.
Of course, there's always drama.
You want to tell us about that drama?
So essentially, obviously, like Joseph said, it is mandatory mini camp, but then, someone's not there. And it just so happens to be your star wide receiver, Stephon Diggs. And so obviously there's a lot of questions that raises a lot of fear for Bills players or Bills fans. And then Sean McDermott, in an interview, gave literally no information whatsoever. He started his interview saying, "I don't want to talk about it." So, I mean, we really kind of had no idea, but there was a little bit of insight that leaked to where he was possibly getting a physical done or something like that. I mean, there's really no specifics because they were trying to keep everything on the down low about what's going on with Stephon.
So at this point, we're speculating, but the thing is, we have some evidence for that speculation. At the end of last season, he was not happy. He was visibly not happy on the sideline in the playoffs. He didn't feel like he was getting enough targets. And when he did get those targets, he didn't feel like they were in the right place, I guess. And he was just frustrated with the offense. I think he was a little frustrated with his quarterback and frustrated with the organization in general. This offseason, there was a lot of talk of him moving somewhere, possibly the Cowboys. We all know that's not happening now. But there was just a lot of talk of him leaving the Bills. And I think what happened today on Tuesday is that he showed up but then left
I
before
think that's
minicamp
correct
started.
as well. I think he was there. I'm pretty sure he was there, got his physical, and then left. And
Yeah.
obviously, I have no idea for what.
I think I think based on Josh Allen's comments, Josh Allen was saying that he loves Stephon Diggs. He thinks there's a lack of communication in the organization right now. I think what it's looking like is Stephon's still frustrated. And I think he might have been frustrated with something and he left.
I
What
think
do you
there was a
think?
lack of communication last season between Allen and Diggs. I mean, like you said, there was visible frustration at the end of last season. And obviously, people have called into question Josh Allen's ability. They know that he's a really talented quarterback. He has a really good arm strength. He's pretty
Right.
accurate. He's a big quarterback. He can run, but he's missing that clutch gene, and obviously that gets frustrating if you're Stephon Diggs because they have failed so many times in the playoffs in recent years that I think that that's caused some tension between the two guys.
Yeah, I just think it's tough because receivers will get to a point where they're really good and they know they're really good and then they get really frustrated. So I think one of like the greatest examples of just like staying humble and just doing your job was Julio Jones. Like he was in a Falcons offense for years that was just not great, but like he never complained about his involvement in the offense. He always just kept going. He didn't get very many targets in the end zone. He rarely had touchdowns. Um, like I always think about him when I think of like a good role model. Right now, Stefan's I think gotten a pretty big head because last season was not just Josh Allen's fault. Stephon Diggs towards the end of the season, his production went way down. And that was not just because of Josh Allen. He was dropping passes and just not catching the ones that he should have been catching.
Well, because what goes along with that is like whenever these receivers know that they're good, they expect to get 9, 10 targets a game. And
Yep.
then when that doesn't happen, it's like
Like they're double
the
covered.
world ends or whatever. Yes. And that's what you have to understand is that in order to be successful, in order for your team to win, you may not get the ball every single play or whatever. Because if
It's
you're the
a
better receiver, then obviously there's going to be more eyes on you. And so that could maybe open up a slot for someone else to come in.
I mean, it's like we saw with the NBA finals. Like, obviously, Jokic is the best player on his team, but he didn't take all the shots. Like, he knew that he had to dish the ball out. He had to get other players involved because in team sports, one guy doing good doesn't win you every game. Every now and then a guy can have a really good game and just take over. But, especially a receiver, he's not doing that every game. So you have to understand your role to know that even when you're not getting targets, you're at least drawing defenders away from other targets. And just be happy about that. His team was very successful last year. And I think this like frustration between him and Allen and some of that stuff could have been the reason that they didn't end up going very far. There does something to be wrong. There does seem to be something wrong with the organization right now.
If I'm Stephon Diggs, to be honest, I guess I could kind of understand some of the frustration, but I would be trying to come to terms with Mr. Allen and everyone else in the organization and trying to mend that bond
Yeah.
because obviously, yeah, the Bills have failed in the playoffs in recent years, but that still does not change the fact that he's in a great situation. And so, obviously there's the possibility of getting traded if this stuff continues.
Yeah.
And, you could go somewhere where obviously you will be incredibly valuable, but you might not be in as great a situation as you would be if you're in Buffalo. And so if I'm Stephon, I would try and ride it out. I'd come to minicamp. I would beg for forgiveness. I'd talk to Sean McDermott and Allen privately and try and fix whatever is between these two guys.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think as a receiver, I mean, as any part of the team, you really can't get a big head like this. Like it's just annoying when players do this. They get, the money, they get the fame that they've been wanting, that they've worked so hard for, and then it kind of gets to their head and they start thinking they're more important than they actually are. I think we've seen a lot of this has happened to a lot of running backs and receivers. Okay. I think we've seen running back is the most easiest replaceable position on the field, right? Running back goes down, there's always another one to come up, and they all, like, for the most part, you have a good O-line, you're going to have a good running back. Now, next to that is receiver. The Chiefs lost Tyreek Hill, right? That guy is a top 5 receiver in the league right now. Okay? They lost Tyreek Hill, and they gained pretty much no one, and they won the Super Bowl. It just goes to show, like, you're a good receiver, but you're replaceable. In the NFL, you're always replaceable, especially if you're a running back or a receiver. I can't speak as much for the defensive side, but that's offensive.
But absolutely. I mean, obviously the Chiefs, that's the main example right there. They lost their number one receiver who's been top 5 in the league for the last like 5 or so years, and then they lose him and they do better without him than they did with him. They literally win the Super Bowl that very next year. And speaking of receiver, I think this can segue partially into the next part. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins is no longer a Cardinal, and so there is question on where he's going to go. And I think a lot of teams might be, cautious to take him because there is high risk and high reward there, right? The high risk is that he is injury prone, but the high reward is that whenever he is productive, he is extremely productive. And I have heard there have been rumblings about him going to the Patriots. I believe he had a visit with the Titans as well. And so Joseph, what are your thoughts on this whole situation?
The DeAndre Hopkins thing, I think we talked about this in our first Prove Me Wrong a while ago. DeAndre Hopkins, in my opinion, and like I still think he's a good receiver. He's asking for a lot of money. And like he's asking for a lot based on his past resume, but the last 2 seasons for him have not been great. He's been injured and suspended both of those seasons. And for me, D-Hop's not a valuable signing right now. I think that you should go out and find some young talent. Right now, we've seen in the NFL, it's all about youth. They want young guys because young guys, they are quicker and also they're just a little bit more durable because they haven't been hit as much right now. D-Hop is just not the same receiver that he was in his prime. And I'm thinking of this from a business perspective. And I'm actually going to talk about Stephon Diggs as well. I don't think somebody should sign D-Hop. I don't think he's going to be a valuable addition to a team. Now, maybe the Titans, because they do have money and they really don't have any receivers. So adding D-Hop might help them just a little bit. But I guess the Patriots don't really have a ton of receivers. But the thing is, for a team, he wants to go to the Bills, the Chiefs. He basically just wants to go to a Super Bowl contender. They don't need him. They don't have that much money to spend. And I'm going to look at the Stephon Diggs thing. If Stephon's going to cause this many problems in the seat, if he's going to start causing problems and keep causing problems, trade him. Get him out of here. Get some draft picks. Get some more talent. You can get a less popular receiver, but one that's younger. Stephon Diggs is getting older too, So I'm just saying I don't know if he's worth that much problem, that much of a problem.
The other thing is, like you said, with being replaceable. Think about him in Minnesota, right? He gets traded away, and what do? Or what does Minnesota do? They draft Justin Jefferson, and literally Stephon gets replaced like that.
And Justin Jefferson
is, yes, and he's one of the top 2 receivers in the league right now. And so that just goes to show that, hey, they could trade you and then get someone else that is just as good or better in a heartbeat, and no one will remember your name. But I do think that DeAndre Hopkins' value has gone down in the past couple years. Obviously, there's the suspension, there's the injury.
He's not worth the money he's asking for.
He wants to go to the Chiefs and stuff like that, but obviously the Chiefs have proven that they can win with nobody's at wide receiver. And then obviously with the Patriots, that's not really who they are. The Patriots don't.
Yeah, they're not a star receiver organization.
They don't pay the big guys the big bucks, right? They always go after those small random receivers that you've never heard of that turn out to be incredible. So, I wouldn't be surprised if this is it for DeAndre Hopkins. Obviously he might go somewhere like the Titans, but I just don't think he's very valuable.
I think this can also go with a lot of the hype this week has been around Odell Beckham and his new purple and black down there in Baltimore, I guess up there in Baltimore. And he's getting hyped up. He's always been hyped up. Number one NFL football player on Instagram in terms of followers. I mean, he's been the guy that people love to just see. And Nick, what are we thinking here?
Obviously, we've talked about Odell Beckham Jr. before.
Yes, we
Obviously,
have.
never been a fan, never believed the hype, never bought in. I don't think he's going to be the huge difference maker for the Ravens. He hasn't played a game in over a year.
Right.
I want to
Yeah.
say
Since the Super
the
Bowl.
last game he played was the Super Bowl. He didn't even finish that game
Yep.
either. He went out like that's first
He
or
tore his
second
ACL.
quarter.
Was he getting tackled? No. He tore his ACL in an open field running, and he just tore it by
And
himself.
and the other thing is, I saw someone was talking about they were trying to compare Odell on the Ravens to Terrell Owens back in the day when he was on the Eagles, and I was like, obviously they're trying to make it out like they're the same guy, but to me that was just laughable because Terrell Owens is one of the best receivers of all time, and he was durable and he was a beast. And then
He's still
you're
playing.
comparing him, yeah, he's still playing in the
The fan controlled
fan
league.
controlled
He's
football league.
almost 50
Yeah,
years old.
he's almost 50 years old and he still plays at some level, but you got Odell over here who hasn't played in a year. And obviously the Ravens have never had a good wide receiver. Their best receiving weapon has been Mark Andrews, and he wasn't that great for them last year. But I don't think this is going to be the end all be all that makes the Ravens good
They
once again.
um they took one in the draft, Flowers, I think. I want to say he was out of Boston College
Yeah,
in the first round. He could be good, but Odell's not going to be the answer. Like we've always said, he had a really good catch, one of the most like iconic catches. And
who won that game?
the
That's right.
Cowboys did, but and since like he's not really he just has not been all that, and now he's definitely not because he's coming off an ACL injury.
I mean, other than his rookie year with the Giants, I mean, not really that good. I mean, yeah, he
After
won a Super Bowl with the Rams, but to me, that was just, he just got plugged into a really, really good
Yeah,
situation and
he
was
came
just a
in through the
victim
middle
of
of
the
the season.
circumstance. So he was not a
I
true
think
Ram.
also there's a reason that he's been bounced around. You know, there's a
It's
reason that guys
because
get bounced
he's
around.
not a good locker room presence to have. Obviously, the
Puts
most
unnecessary
notorious one
pressure.
was him and Baker Mayfield. I know that was a huge deal back in the day. They used to butt heads all the time, and then it came to that breaking point to where he was complaining about not getting the ball, and then you remember his dad posted
Yep.
highlights of him when he was wide open and stuff, and then he goes to the
I
Rams, and
got
then he
I got
hasn't played in
news
a year.
for Odell Beckham Sr., I guess. Dude, there are always guys wide open.
Stay out of it,
Always.
man.
Yeah, there's always a wide open guy. The quarterback like can't see everyone. There's always a missed open guy. That's how it works. Okay. And also, I'm not sure I'd throw it to Odell either if he was wide open. So there you
Dude,
go.
if I'm a
There's that.
quarterback and I see Odell's dad do that, I'm like, yeah, you're never getting the ball
Yep.
again. That's just what I'm doing. That's
It's
personal
kind of
opinion.
weak if you're a professional NFL football player and your dad's trying to be the one that's
Your dad's coming out here trying to bail you out, and you're trying to
like, what is
claim that
this,
you're one
Little
of the
League?
best receivers ever. Like, if you're one of the best receivers ever, then you don't need
Dude,
someone like that to do that for
nobody
you.
nobody likes those kids whose dad does that in Little League. So he's definitely not gonna nobody's gonna like it if your dad's doing that when you're a professional football player. Also, you should be able to stand up for yourself at that point. You shouldn't have your dad do it for you. So yeah, the hype around Odell, I think he's always going to be hyped up. He's not going to be that productive this season. Also, Lamar doesn't even throw the ball. So
Lamar's
um
he's a running back. Like that's been the running joke is that he's a running back. He doesn't
yep.
throw, so there's no point in getting receivers because he's not going to use them.
But
Another little
yeah,
hype up has been, Aaron Rodgers with the Jets.
he's
Obviously,
there.
there's some huge hype there. Obviously, don't like it as a Cowboys fan because we're not very big Aaron Rodgers fans. I mean, I do see them being
He'll be
pretty
better.
lethal.
Yeah.
Obviously, way better than they were last year. I don't know about
Hey, week
playoff
2.
contenders or
Week
anything like
2
that. I am
coming to
looking
Dallas
forward to week 2. The New York Jets come to Dallas, Texas. Hopefully,
to
hopefully,
get destroyed.
yes. We put on a clinic.
Hopefully Micah just lights Aaron Rodgers up. I know he wants to. I need him to get in there.
I mean, I keep looking at the schedule as a Cowboys fan, and it's like, oh, we've got some difficult games in
We have a
there.
tough schedule.
I gave us a generous 10-7, you know.
Yeah, I
But
mean, here's the thing. If we can just get into the playoffs with that schedule, we'll be at least playoff ready. We're seeing a lot of playoff teams this year.
that's what I
So
think too, is we're seeing a lot of good guys, lots of good
we
quarterback
we were
talent.
not playoff ready last season. We saw a lot of terrible teams and
Mm-mm.
we barely won those games. And sometimes we lost those games. And I think at least this year we'll be able to see. And dude, there's a tremendous amount of pressure on Dak. Like we talked about this. We won't go into it since we're almost done here, but there's a lot of pressure on Dak Prescott this year. This is it for him. And Mike McCarthy, this is it for him. So
Obviously, the past 2 years, me and Joseph have been saying that this is Dak's make or break year. This is McCarthy's make
yep.
or break year, but we don't really see any movement in that aspect.
Yeah.
I've seen some people saying that Dak is going to have a breakout year this year, and I'm not sure if I necessarily believe that. Obviously, there's really no evidence that would lead me to believe that, but that has been said before, and I
You
think
know,
that's kind of bogus.
what would be progress if he's not leading all quarterbacks in interceptions at the end of the season?
Absolutely,
Missed five
absolutely. And
games and still
I
had
was
the
about to
interception
say
record.
missed 5 games at the beginning of the season and still led in interceptions. That's pathetic.
Yep. That's what these mandatory mini camps are for. Everybody's getting ready. We're excited, and there's definitely going to be a lot more drama to follow. There always is around this time after everyone's getting back.
Mm-hmm.
So we're excited for some NFL football. I'm excited for it to actually start.
Absolutely.
In the meantime, we'll just keep watching those Rangers, and hopefully they stop losing.
They get out of
Um,
this little rut. There's this little
yep,
slump that they're in. They can
yep.
figure it out. But nonetheless, here's you like to end our shows on under review. I'm bringing it back to Nikola Jokic, who after the game last night said, "Don't bet against the fat boy," and that's the truth. Do not bet
Amen.
against the fat boy because you will be disappointed.
Hey, he doesn't look the part, but he is probably one of the best
He
centers in
plays the
NBA
part
history.
very well.
Yep.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
congrats to the Nuggets. We've come full circle, and we will see y'all next week with another episode of Under Review.